Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our virtual town hall meeting today. My name is Ben Owen. I manage the Commuter Choice funding program for the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. Today, we're going to be talking about proposed transportation projects currently under consideration for funding from our Commuter Choice program on the I-66 corridor. The purpose of today's meeting is to describe the projects and give you, as members of the public, an opportunity to ask questions about them and have those answered. We anticipate that our commission will take action to fund several projects this fall. Before they can do that, however, we're required to have a public comment period on the projects under consideration for funding. We have such a period open now through the 21st of this month. We're interested in your thoughts on the projects, so after today's discussion, we also encourage you to fill out our online survey form. There will be a link near the end of the presentation, as well as information about other means by which you can offer comments as well. We will share all comments we receive with our commission prior to their taking action. And I should mention at the outset here that, as you're probably all aware, pretty much everything in the transportation funding realm in our region has been affected by the COVID-19 public health emergency. We are no exception to that, and I'll also explain in the course of the presentation how we're adjusting our funding approach given decreases in available revenue and increases in uncertainty, particularly around transit ridership. We have several members of the NVTC Commuter Choice team participating today. They include Dina Germa, Program Analyst, Jay Watkins, our Marketing and Outreach Manager, and we also have other staff from NVTC that are listening in as well. We also have representatives from all the entities that submitted the applications that are under consideration for funding, and they're on the line to help answer questions today. The representatives we have on are Dan Maloff from Arlington County, Chloe Ritter and Wendy Sanford from the city of Fairfax, Martha Coelho from Fairfax County, Perrin Palestrant from Omni, and Scott Gross from Loudoun County. So we are streaming this, of course, via YouTube. Please put questions in the YouTube chat window as we go. We will respond to them at the end of the presentation. Your questions can be about specific projects or the program in general. We are recording this session. You'll be able to rewatch it later if you want through our YouTube channel. We will be rebroadcasting this on Tuesday evening as well. To keep things as streamlined as possible in terms of pieces of information, the basis for my presentation today will be the project profile slides that appear on our public comment webpage. So if you've looked at those already, this may look familiar to you. First, I'll provide a bit of background on the Commuter Choice program before we get into funding and programming and specific projects. You're probably all aware of the tolls on I-66 between the Beltway and the DC line that apply when traveling eastbound toward DC in the morning rush hour and westbound away from DC in the afternoon rush hour. Put most basically, the Commuter Choice program reinvests a portion of the toll revenue collected on I-66 inside the Beltway into transportation improvements that aim to maximize the number of people moving through the corridor during the rush hour, as well as expand travel options for commuters. By corridor, what I'm referring to includes I-66 itself, as well as major parallel roads and rail transit lines. Commuter Choice is a Commonwealth-created program that we at NVTC manage. The goals that appear here in terms of maximizing person throughput and implementing multimodal improvements apply to any projects that we fund. They're part of the memoranda of agreement with the Commonwealth that govern the program. It's very important that the projects we fund confer a benefit to the people paying the tolls. That's a strict requirement of this funding according to Virginia legal precedent. Just to be clear, we at NVTC do not collect toll revenue directly or manage any aspect of the tolling or pricing itself. The Virginia Department of Transportation has those responsibilities for the I-66 inside the Beltway corridor. The types of improvements that we support include transit service expansions, such as new bus routes and more frequent and convenient service on existing routes, strategies to improve access to transit stops and stations by foot or by bike, outreach and incentive campaigns to encourage commuters to try alternatives to driving alone, strategies to improve the performance and safety of roadways in the corridor, and capital improvements to rail transit facilities. Most of our investments to date have been new and expanded transit services that move more people efficiently and create attractive and effective alternatives to driving for commuters. Commuter Choice is a competitive program. We at NVTC don't come up with the project proposals. Rather, local towns, cities, counties, and transit agencies do. We have calls for projects every other year in the I-66 corridor, so the set of proposed projects we'll be talking about today results from our most recent call for projects that was open last November through January. A lot has changed in the world since then, given the public health emergency, so we'll address the ramifications of that. We as NVTC staff are responsible for evaluating the proposals we receive and advancing a proposed set of projects for funding from these. The public comment period that's underway right now until September 21st is part of the program development process for the set of projects that would be funded this fall, which is a piece of what we're calling the I-66 Round 4 program, that is, projects to be funded in fiscal years 2021 and 2022. Our commission and then the Commonwealth Transportation Board ultimately approve a final set of projects for funding. And once that happens, our funding recipients can then begin work to carry out their projects. Eligible applicants for the I-66 corridor program are basically Northern Virginia towns, cities, counties, and transit agencies that are roughly along the I-66 corridor or have a lot of commuters traveling into or through the corridor. So getting into the COVID-19 impacts a bit in terms of funding available, normally we would anticipate a total of $25 to $30 million to fund projects over each 2-year period. This revenue all derives from toll collections. Basically, VDOT pays us up to a specified maximum amount after they cover their operating and maintenance costs of the tolling. This spring, VDOT's monthly revenue was down to as low as 10% of budgeted figures. It's at about 25% now. This has sharply decreased the amount of revenue that we can reasonably expect to receive, and there's still a lot of uncertainty as to when things may begin to rebound. Fortunately, we have a modest amount of surplus in the bank already in terms of unallocated funds from prior years, as well as funding returned to us from projects that were completed under budget. So we're basically proposing a two-pronged approach to programming funds, which is this. Oops, I'm sorry about that. Basically, and what we're talking about today in terms of projects, we feel comfortable funding up to $4 million worth of projects now. About half of this is money that we have in the bank, and the other half is a very conservative estimate of new toll revenue we'll receive in fiscal year 2021. What we as staff are recommending and have proposed to our commission is allocating this funding for 2 types of project. The first is continuations of transit services that we've supported before. The idea here is to provide continuity for commuters that may begin returning to their work sites. We generally support 2 years of operations for any transit service at a time, and then recipients must successfully reapply to receive continued funding support. The second category of project is small capital projects. These are relatively low risk projects with long-term benefits that are not dependent upon immediate ridership. And these are the projects across these 2 categories on which we're seeking comment now. We plan to come back in spring 2021 to program funds for additional projects, including new transit services, new incentives for commuters, and larger capital efforts. We will have another public comment period at that time, shortly before the commission would take any action on the program. This slide shows all of the eligible applications that we received in response to our most recent call for projects. As I mentioned, the deadline for applications was January, so still in the pre-COVID world. So we followed up last month with all applicants to ascertain what we should keep in consideration for funding. There are 3 proposed projects that have been deferred to the next round of funding. 2 of these, the Arlington County and Omni ride proposals, are efforts that the applicants still intend to advance, just not in this 2-year period. And the other, the Loudoun County proposal, is a continuation of a service that has enough funding to continue through fiscal years 21 and 22. We are providing a one-time flexibility for transit services we've supported before to spend down their funds, given that many have been suspended or reduced due to COVID-19. Overall, there are 11 applications remaining in consideration with a $17.2 million total funding request. So now getting into what we expect this fall's program of projects to look like. As a reminder, for this fall, we'll ask the Commission and Commonwealth Transportation Board to program the approximately $4 million available for those proposals out of the 11 still under consideration that represent renewals of existing commuter choice supported transit services and smaller capital projects. So shown here are the 6 proposed projects that we recommend funding this fall. And these are the 6 that we will go over today in terms of what they encompass. These fit within the $4 million of funding that's available. And I will go through through each of them in more detail, but in some there are 3 transit service continuations and 3 small capital projects. And so now going through these one by one. First is a proposed second entrance at the Mclean Silver Line Metro Rail station. This proposed second entrance would improve access to and from a large new mixed-use development that's happening to the station's north. So it's a very large-scale development, including extensive commercial development, as well as up to new residential units to accommodate up to 2,000 prospective additional residents. As it is, the main bus loop for the station is across Route 123 from the station. And while there is an entrance to the station itself on the same side of Route 123, it adds a few minutes walk out of the way from the development area. So the function of the project in relation to our program goals is to improve access to the I-66 inside the Beltway corridor via a more convenient and attractive connection to the Silver Line for the up to 2,000 residents that would be moving into the new residential units that are part of the development. The second proposal is a continuation of operating support for Omni Ride's Gainesville to Pentagon and Navy Yard commuter bus route. This service started in December 2016. It was one of the first bus services that we supported under Commuter Choice, and it's been one of the most successful. It's a rush hour peak direction service, so it operates inbound toward the Pentagon and DC in the morning and outbound in the afternoon with 9 trips in each direction. The project here includes several months of operations support to ensure seamless service of the route through the end of fiscal year 22. This project brings commuters through the I-66 inside the Beltway corridor to major job sites beyond the corridor, thereby helping reduce car trips in the corridor. On average, it had almost 600 daily passenger trips prior to the public health emergency. Next is another proposed Omni Ride service continuation. Here, continued operating support for the Haymarket to Rosland commuter bus route, which started in 2019. Like the last service, this is also a rush hour peak direction service. So there are 4 trips inbound from Haymarket to the Roslyn-Ballston corridor in the morning, and then 4 trips out in the afternoon. Here too, we would be providing several months of operations support to ensure seamless service through the end of fiscal year 2022. This project brings commuters to job concentrations in the Roslyn-Ballston corridor adjacent to I-66, thereby helping reduce car trips in the corridor. On average, there were almost 300 daily passenger trips on this route prior to the public health emergency. Next is a proposed expansion of capital bike share into the city of Fairfax. And this is actually part of a larger forthcoming expansion that the city of Fairfax has received funding for through other sources. Commuter Choice would be supporting the installation of 4 stations, purchase of associated bikes, and then 24 months of operations of those stations. The stations would be placed in locations convenient to the Vienna Metro Rail station to help create a new first and last mile travel alternative for commuters in the northeastern part of the city that are headed into the I-66 corridor. This expansion would also complement a bike share expansion that's underway in neighboring parts of Fairfax County, and it would also support higher density development that's planned for this portion of the city. Next is a proposed rush hour high occupancy vehicle and bus only lane along Lee Highway in Arlington near the Rosland station. This project includes the design and construction of those dedicated lanes along Lee Highway, basically reallocating existing lanes for buses and high occupancy vehicles during rush hours. So the project includes activities to develop the project and then actually carry it out in terms of painting, restriping, and signage. And when I say high occupancy vehicle, I'm referring to carpools, van pools, and other sorts of shared rides. This part of Lee Highway is used by 60 local and commuter buses during just the morning rush hour, peak period. These can be delayed by several minutes apiece while approaching the station as a result of traffic congestion. So these dedicated lanes would save up to roughly 7 minutes per bus trip for passengers of those bus routes. And our last of the 6 projects proposed for funding this fall is a continuation of operating support for Loudoun County's Purcellville Metro Connection route. This is a bus route that connects Purcellville area residents with the Silver Line for travel into and through the I-66 corridor. We would be supporting 1 additional year of operations, as well as the leasing of park and ride spaces in Purcellville up through the end of fiscal year 2022. This route provides 9 peak period, peak direction trips in each direction. So 9 trips in from Purcellville to the Silver Line in the morning, and then 9 trips out in the afternoon. It had roughly 100 total daily passenger trips prior to the public health emergency. Ridership is anticipated to grow once Silver Line Phase 2 opens, as this will allow for a shorter bus ride and potentially more frequent service on the route. So again, this is the last of the 6 projects under consideration for funding this fall, and these are the 6 projects on which we're seeking comment at this time. I did mention before we get into question and answer that we're kind of splitting up our programming approach for this particular 2-year period, given the uncertainty over revenues. We aim to advance a second slate of projects next spring, provided additional toll revenue. We think there's a robust chance that we'll be back in several months to seek comment on a second slate of projects for additional funding. We are hopeful that toll revenue will begin to pick back up later in fiscal year 21 and exceed the modest amount that we're currently anticipating we'll receive. As part of this fiscal year 22 action, we would also be programming toll revenue we expect to receive in fiscal year 22. We should have those projections, in the next several months, we hope, as well as a $5 million payment that we expect to receive associated with the new I-66 outside the Beltway express lanes. So thinking back to the set of 11 proposals that are still under consideration at this time, the remaining 5 that we would not be programming this fall would be under consideration for funding in the spring. And these include 2 transit services, new transit services, 1 larger capital project, and 2 commuter incentives. These projects either do not fit within the funding that's available right now, and/or they assume immediate ridership that may be slow to materialize given the continued repercussions of the public health emergency. So shown here is the survey form link for the 6 projects under consideration for funding this fall. We welcome your feedback on these proposed projects. In addition to the online survey form, you can also use our comment call-in line. The number for that is area code 703-957-8274. Again, 703-957-8274. Or you can send an email to comment@commuterchoice.org. And we will put this information in the description box on YouTube so that you can see it right there too. And again, we will share all feedback we receive with the commission prior to any action they take in regard to funding these projects. So we very much appreciate you taking time to join us today and to learn more about what's going on with commuter choice in the I-66 corridor. We will go through the questions we received in the chat window in the order received and respond to each of them. And please feel free to enter questions as we talk through things. I think we may not have any questions at this time, so we will pause for a moment. And if you have any questions, please enter them in. While we wait for any questions to come in, one thing I do want to mention, I alluded to a rebroadcasting of this event. That is going to be on Tuesday, September 15th at 7 p.m. We will be online and monitoring questions then as well to see if anything else comes in. And we will be following up from that event with any questions that are raised. And you are also welcome to contact us via our social channels. Facebook, I believe, is our main other social channel. Okay, well, we've not had any questions come in. We also do, as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook or on Twitter. If anything comes up, if you have questions you have on these projects, again, we're very interested in your thoughts and feedback on them as well. So we do provide within the comments on YouTube a link to the comment form, as well as other ways to reach us as well via email or by telephone if you so prefer. And yeah, as mentioned, we will be rebroadcasting again Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. as well. We do, I just want to remind people as well, the deadline for public comments is September 21st. We do anticipate that our commission will take action on this initial round 4 program at their October 1st meeting. So we will, again, share any feedback we receive with them. So with that, I think we're going to adjourn for today. Thank you for your interest in Commuter Choice, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on these projects. Hope everyone has a good weekend.